I wanted to give you a visual of what price floors and price ceilings can do in a market, just for the visual learners and because I think it helps explain what they really are. The words can be confusing. When you think ceiling, you think it's going to be, towards the top. But what it means is it's a limit. It's the top as high as you can go. So if the government institutes a price ceiling, it's saying, I'm going to change colors here. It's saying, for example, that the highest price that can be charged in that market, even though the equilibrium is up here, the government is saying the highest price you can charge for this good or service is right here. So one example of this is rent control. Sometimes the government might feel as though the market price, the equilibrium price for housing in an area might be too high for a population that needs housing. So in order to control the price and make sure that there's affordable housing for people who maybe otherwise couldn't afford it, they might institute a price ceiling, which means you can't go higher than this line, this price. So what does that do to the market? Well, here's our supply curve. We've got supply here, and we've got demand here. So if our quantity supplied is less than our quantity demanded, what happens? Do we have a shortage or do we have a surplus? If our supply is less than our demand, then we have a shortage. So while rent control or other price ceilings might seem like a good idea, sometimes it can cause a shortage of goods in that market, which can then be problematic. Another thing that might happen with rent control, for example, is the owners of the properties who might have been willing to offer that property at equilibrium price might say, well, if all I can get for it is this maximum price that was set, number one, I might just sell the property to a homeowner and get out of the rental landlord business altogether, or they might not maintain it as well as they had before because it doesn't really matter if it's a nicer place in the neighborhood, they still can only get this much for it. So what can end up happening is there might be housing available, but it might be lower quality housing. And then, like I said, there's a shortage often because there's not as much available as there is demanded. Okay, the opposite is this term price floor. And again, you think floor, you think bottom, but the floor is the lowest price available, which might not be as low as the equilibrium. So the example in your lesson here is minimum wage. The market might say that minimum wage is down here, but the government might say that's not fair compensation. It's not allowing people to pay for their basic needs. So the government says the lowest you can pay somebody is at this level, minimum wage. So does that create a shortage or a surplus of labor? And the answer to that is we have supply of labor is over here now, right? Because more people are willing to work for this higher wage, but the demand for labor is lower. And that can be explained because if a small business owner has to pay employees a certain rate, he might not be able to have as many employees as he might have before. So the demand for labor might be down and the supply is up. So now we've got this surplus because, again, we're talking about it's above equilibrium price. And so that can result in a surplus of workers. So that is just a visual explanation for those of you who find it easier to understand when you can see the picture. And if you've got questions on the questions in the assignment that you would like some help with, just let me know.